And we're recording. Welcome to Sponsored by Nobody. This week, sponsored by... And now I'm blanking. Oh man, I came up with so many good ones right before this. They were really good. I swear they were good.
Sponsored by
What was
Thought
it?
Trains.
Yeah, sponsored by Thought Trains. They leave the station.
Sponsored by Defoliant. It's never enough.
I was going to say, like, sponsored by Talent. We finally found some. We now have a guest star. But yeah, I'm Ian playing the Firefly, and we have...
Austin playing Zitzi Yaku, the Chelicray.
Bev playing Rook the Ardent.
I'm Dylan, and I'm playing Jisan the Gao.
I'm Jonathan, and I play Gomez the Ectus.
And we have an amazing special guest star today, who is...
I'm Felix, and I created the game, I guess.
Yeah.
So... I mean, not single-handedly, other people helped, but yeah.
I'd say probably the most high-up guest star we could ever have for this game.
I'll take that accolade, thank you.
Yeah. I don't think we could get a better guest star than the creator. That's...
Oh no, you could probably get Rick. Rick would be a pretty good guest star. He's run more games than I have.
Well, what are we doing here? Let's call up Rick and see if he can...
Yeah, he'd be in the right time zone as well.
Okay, guys, that's the episode. It was nice talking to everybody.
Yep. Sorry.
Special 3-hour live stream next week with Rick.
Yeah. Excellent. Now that we've completely humiliated our guest star, we should bombard him with some questions.
We haven't done that completely yet. There's still some ground we could cover.
Oh yeah, you've got a few hours to completely humiliate me.
He hasn't paid us enough for the good humiliation.
I mean, frankly, if he's not weeping, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Right?
Right.
If he's not weeping, we're not doing our job.
Exactly.
I'll keep that in mind when I start to tear up.
Yep.
That would really help.
Is that like the spicy food kind of thing? Like it's only good spicy food if you're weeping?
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Well, considering we're doing an interview and spicy food, does that mean this is hot wings? Are we covering someone else's territory now?
Are we? Yeah, we're gonna get hit with a copyright infringement.
So
no, because it's emotional burning.
No milk required, unless you want it.
But suggested.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess the first thing to kind of say off the bat is we sent Felix the episodes in advance because they aren't technically live yet. And Felix has wonderfully devoted all of his time into listening to most of the episodes, so we really appreciate that, honestly, and are thankful for him listening to our ramblings. But there may be some spoilers ahead. Sorry, and Rook has gone offline. Oh no. 1 sec.
Rest in peace.
Bev, can you hear me?
Fell beneath the sea.
Bev, why? Okay, I'm going to stop this and I'll download the intro and then we'll try again in a minute. Sorry. Actually, yeah, talking about the Kickstarter, what made you decide on a D6 system versus like a D8 or a D12, a D10, or the dreaded D20?
So, do you want the good answer or the true answer?
Ooh.
Do we have to pick one?
Should we roll for it?
Oh, I suppose you could have both. Yeah. The good answer is I love the simplicity, the elegant simplicity of a D6 system. I think you can get a lot of mileage out of a well-constructed dice pool, and there's a lot of small mechanics that you can kind of play with to kind of fudge probabilities in different ways. That's the good answer, which makes me sound like one of those horrible people that thinks about these things and is completely not true. The real answer is that I was living in Japan when I did most of the work, and it's really hard to find polyhedral dice in Japan.
Huh. I've heard that. Yeah, that Japan uses a lot of D6s.
Yeah, it's got some of their local games use like D66 systems and things, so they just have a lot of D6s on hand as opposed to any other size of die.
Yeah, it's a neat little bit of trivia.
It's funny that you mentioned like the whole probability side, because I was reading through that whole thread where they were discussing dice rolls,
Oh God!
on the Discord.
I don't mean God in the bad. No, I kind of do. I just probability scares me. Math scares me in general.
Oh yeah, that whole thread was horrifying. I was like, how they didn't teach me this proper math in anything.
Yeah.
Honestly, I thought
Sorcery
it
is
was
this.
beautiful. I loved it as a probabilities guy. Yeah, no, I loved it. I'm sorry.
No, I hate it. I'm glad other people will devote their time towards making sure that my dice system works. And even then, saying my dice system is very proprietary in a very unfair way, seeing that essentially the Blades in the Dark dice system with some changes works. So
Yeah.
I mean, Powered by the
That's
Apocalypse, like, you know,
Bev,
is a
are
thing.
you back?
Yeah, I am.
Yes.
I'm moving myself.
And, you know,
so
a lot of games are just like, oh, we just
Yeah,
use this
sorry.
with changes. And,
I
you
am
know,
the weak
Yeah.
link.
that's fine. They're all their own games.
Well, back in the very old days, it used to be a hybrid D6 D12 system.
It sounds so
With
fun.
Thaco?
Madness.
Sadly, no Thaco, but it was a D6 D12 system where D6s were essentially kind of like levels of success, and D12s were whether you succeed or not, and it kind of interacted in various ways. But then I realized A, I was just doing it to be different, and B, didn't have any D12s anymore.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's
Yeah.
Not everyone can have a chainmail dice sack.
Yeah, I get excited whenever I come up with an idea for a D12 system, and then I remember that the D12s aren't sold in sets the way that
Yes.
like D10s are, and I'm like, hang on.
It's a real pity because D12s are one of the most satisfying die to use. Like
They
they're just
are.
great to roll.
I definitely agree. D12s are definitely underutilized.
Super underutilized.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually kind of amazing because I sit here and I tend to think of Felix as like a mythical unicorn, you know, like with all this like role playing power where he like has constructed this whole world, not like a guy who has trouble accessing 12-sided dice.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a
Well,
human problem.
a lot of people have this weird. I don't know. I'm just some guy. Like every now and then, someone will turn up and go, "Oh, you're Felix. You made the Wildsea. I saw that Kickstarter. It did really well. Like it's really cool to meet you." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks. That's great." But then they ask questions about things, about other games. I'm like, I have no idea. I was essentially living as a hermit. I was only introduced to things like Powered by the Apocalypse and Blades and all that stuff. Like, what, 3 years ago ish?
Mhm.
4?
Oh wow! It just dove
Like-
right in.
Before that, it was all Call of Cthulhu and Pathfinder. Like that was all I ever played.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed them, and 3.5 obviously, but you know that's a
the beast unto itself.
Yeah.
yeah. But I enjoyed them, and then I got into the Rogue Elements podcast, which was doing what was it? Made by Pelgrane Press, 13th Age, which was wonderful. And that led me on to listen to some of their other stuff, and that led me on to other games, and then my world kind of diversified massively in terms of games, and I realized that I could kind of cannibalize bits I enjoyed from other systems, and I've said it on some previous podcasts before, but I always feel a bit bad saying it. I realized that a lot of the stuff I was doing in isolation, in terms of mechanics and narrative feeling, was stuff that other games had already done and been successful with, and done it far better than I could. So I just looked at those things and went, "Oh, I can use that." So, you know.
Yeah, no, there are so many games out there, and it is neat to hear that you listen to a random podcast or you found a podcast that you liked, and all of a sudden it took you from just playing one or two styles of games to seeing a dozen other games out there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The amount of indie games and different ones coming onto the market every day is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Before the Wildsea existed as a setting, when it was just a kind of set of mechanics made for generalist play, I'd never really considered the concept of creating a setting-focused game, because most setting-focused games I'd run into were things like Ravenloft, settings for existing systems anyway, and they never really grabbed me. But then I heard, I think it was One Shot do a playthrough, a one-shot, well, oddly enough, of Belly of the Beast by Ben Dutter, and that is incredibly setting-focused and massively underplayed. I think Belly of the Beast is one of the nicest tightest setting and mechanics into play as I've seen in a role-playing game. And that is all about the setting. You're inside a giant creature which has eaten the world. Survive in its gut.
Okay.
Done.
Yeah.
And I just realized, like, hey, you could make a really cool setting-focused game by just having a really strong core premise and throwing a few details in there.
Yeah, and you definitely have done that with the setting because it's Waterworld but with trees.
I was thinking, I was like, I love Waterworld, and when I saw this, I was just like, it's so evocative.
The setting of Waterworld.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
No, I have no shame. I love the movie Waterworld. I will not.
So when do we
right there with
discover that? So at what point are we going to discover that Tum Tums has the map to not dry land on his back?
Preferably not. The skin farm doesn't like to taint its skin.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, don't feel too bad because I liked Kevin Costner in The Postman, and I have a DVD of it somewhere.
Yeah. So no, the settings definitely it is interesting. Like, and you have a narrative based system, so it allows for a lot of improv even with the setting. Like in your book, I think you're doing. I mean, I know some of it's still redacted, but you have at least 4 reaches now. I think in the book.
I think there's 5 in the book currently, but I don't think the 5th one has been. I would say the number we're aiming for, but that might change. You never know.
Yeah, no. That's as I say. I know some of it's redacted and not yet spoiled, so I was just trying to. But yeah, 5. You have 5 reaches in the book, and they all have just a bunch of lore and awesome stuff in them. And yet, in our game, I think we saw almost a half dozen reaches I created, or we created together, because I kind of had us moving greater distances and farther things, and just we really liked spitballing ideas. And actually, I don't know if you noticed this, Felix, but I stole that from you.
I mean, no probs.
You hosted a game for some people way back when the Kickstarter first launched, and I was in one of those games. And you started the game with a prompt asking, what do you think the leaves look like in this reach? What do you think the berries are? What do you think the animal is? And what's a local landmark sort of thing? And I've carried that through almost every time we've gone to a new reach. I've asked our players, and that's really helped us shape our world together instead of just me saying this is what it is.
Yeah, I find that kind of stuff really both important and interesting, and I think it really suits the tone of the game as well. It spreads the world out around the table in terms of agency, rather than throwing it all on the GM.
Yeah, and that's we really enjoy that. I mean, I don't know if you've listened to any of other podcasts or anything, but we play a lot of Fellowship and other fiction first narrative systems where we do a lot of creative stuff. In fact, in many of our episodes, we rarely roll dice. I felt kind of bad because we filled out the questionnaires about, how did this session go and what did you roll and what things did you use? But we some sessions we rolled a lot, and other sessions there was one session we didn't roll any dice. And yeah.
That does not bother me in the slightest. I think I've done the same thing as well in some of the games that I've run and played in at the Wildsea. If you're engaged enough with the setting and the narrative that the dice kind of fall away and the mechanics just fall by the wayside, you're still having fun playing the game and you're still having fun telling your story, and that's the main thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Depending on what's going on, I actually just like kicking back and just being no, we don't really need to roll dice. We can just have fun. This is fine.
Yeah.
I think I managed to play in the Interregnum during the Winter Train playtest during B.
Mm-hmm.
And that was cool. It was so different from the stuff we'd played in our campaigns.
Mm-hmm. I think I was with you on that one.
Yeah, I think you were in one of the plays we did in that one.
Yeah, we like dove under a ship that was charging at us or something, and like it was like the ship was charging at us as part of one of somebody on their ship's rights or something, like a right of adulthood or something. Like you have to charge that ship, but we didn't know that. So all we knew was that there was a ship that was basically. Actually, no, it wasn't basically. It was literally a bull running on the trees,
Yeah, that makes sense.
screaming at us. We were like, well, let's just go under this one.
Yeah, the Interregnum was actually the first Reach ever made, although it was very different back then.
Yeah, I think when I played in it still wasn't quite settled down how it was going to be yet.
Yeah, well, there was no snow in the old days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's a huge core premise of the Interregnum now. It was,
Yeah.
Shame about that climate change.
Yep, that's the way it goes. Wildsea, slowly dying world.
Sometimes quickly.
That leads us into a good question. Because you have such a vibrant and interactive Discord, and I've seen a bunch of, the community posts are amazing. How much has that influenced the game, and how, what is it like, I guess, just being the creator of this thing and looking at how many people and how many different opinions and topics and art and stories and just everything thrown at it.
I absolutely love it, and at the same time, it is entirely terrifying.
I was
Like, I can't put it into any more succinct words than that.
like, do you ever like propose an idea and then just walk away from your phone or your computer and then come back and see 5 or 6 people just jump on the idea and you're like, why am I even writing?
Oh yeah, almost every time I brought something up, it was specifically to have some time away and watch people after I've come back, having threshed all this out and kind of talked it over with each other, and then go, here's what we thought, here's the process, here's all our ideas, and what do you think, Felix? And I'm just like, it's great, it's cool.
Thank you for doing all the legwork.
Yeah.
It was a weird balance though, especially in the kind of early point of the Discord when it started getting a bit more popular, and we had world building was by far the most popular channel for people to kind of spitball and throw ideas around him, which was great. But it also made me worry that I shouldn't be reading it in case I'm influenced by it. But I kind of got over that reasonably quickly, because I realized that when people were talking about things, it wasn't stuff that they wished I'd made. It was stuff that they'd enjoyed making themselves. So they were filling in gaps that were left, or like concepts that they wanted to be addressed, but I didn't have to address it the same way they did. So if everyone was talking about like, oh, water was one of the big ones. Like, how is water collected? Where does water come from? How is it traded? How is it, all of that stuff. And there were the fantastic ideas, but I didn't feel the need to go like, oh, I wish I'd had that particular idea myself, because I could have my own ideas, throw them in, and if people didn't like them, hey, people have already got other ones to look at. Like, they've already got their own stuff. So that was really nice, coming to the realization that I wasn't beholden to the ideas people threw out on the Discord. It was just more of an inkling of, this is the kind of thing people want to see. These are the areas I haven't addressed well enough, etc.
I guess that's a big bonus of being such a narrative-driven system.
Definitely.
Is people can do what they want with it, just using your core rules and just playing with it themselves.
One of the best games I've played where I was a player rather than the Firefly, I believe it was run by Talion, who is amazing, and it was a kind of Iron Chef style tournament.
Oh, I listened to that one. That was great.
It was amazing. It was just a really, really fun game to play. Almost all took place in one tiny spit. No real exploration or journeying, but there didn't need to be, because we had this tiny story to tell, and we got super invested in it. I loved it. So it's a flexible system by dint of being narrative. It's just one of those happy accidents of design, I guess.
So, if I may, Jonathan,
yeah,
just that I'm kind of old. I played a lot of 3.5 back in the day.
Yeah,
I
so
played
did I.
a bit of Pathfinder, but I mean, I find it hard to get into role playing systems that kind of pigeonhole you into their setting at the same time, right? Like the setting tries too hard to fill in all of those gaps for you, and in the exact opposite way, the Wildsea has all these great and fantastic outlines that make it really easy for your brain to fill in all those gaps and make it like your own interpretation of what's going on. And this has been the only role playing system that I've played, probably at least in the last decade, where I have actually completely gone into just role playing. You know what I mean? Like when we're all sitting here as a group and we're playing as a group, and as you say, the dice don't come out. We're just spitballing ideas back and forth and laughing our heads off and just having a really, really good time with it. And I'm like, that's honestly so magical. That's not something you can just find anywhere these days.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people, and it always makes me really happy when I do. I think having a strong and simple core premise to the setting really helps with and to the kind of characters themselves. Trying to say this in the nicest way, to keep it as simple as possible is the best way to have people interact with it and kind of lose themselves in it. And that's not to say kind of, you can't do complex things for players. It's just that I prefer it when I give the simple stuff and the players do all the complex things themselves, because they can kind of get into the complex stuff and enjoy it, and they make it their own, and that's great because it encourages roleplay and it encourages just table conversation.
Yeah.
It's kind of impressive how many things that this game does that I've wanted in a game and have actually been like kind of vocal. Like, I wish games would do this. And then I just kind of, I think Ian mentioned it, like, hey, I'm running this game. So of course I jumped on because I like this podcast a lot and was like, oh, I would love to be a cast member. And then I read the book and was like, oh, you did the things that I wanted. This is good. This is great. And I did back it. I did. I looked it up.
Well, good.
Yeah. But like I like in D&D, they're like, well, you could pick like a background and a class and like a race that you are. And I'm like, okay, but what are these like? What does each thing give you? And they're like, a couple of things. Whereas you're like, hey, you pick like what you are, where you grew up, and what you did.
Yeah.
And all three of those things equally contribute to what you are and who you are and what your stats are. And I'm like, that's what I've been wanting. This is great. So thanks for that. That's good.
No, I'm
like
glad you enjoy it.
It's like the flexibility of it. It's like if I can't figure out how to do what I want, it's really just like, all right, well, what is the book not offering, and how can we just like add a new thing in? Like, could adding one new aspect make this concept possible? Yes or no? Like, and it's usually yes.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people come up with their own aspects and things, and it's one of those things where I've looked at some of them and thought, oh, I don't know if I'd have written it that way, but I've never looked at one and thought that is a bad aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think that's really good because it means that the aspect rules, I mean, not to toot my own horn too much, it means they're simple enough and easy to grasp enough that people can take them and run with them and twist them into something that they can make something truly unique for themselves without breaking the general rules of the game or without breaking the kind of flow of how the rules work.
When you added the just directly in the manual, when it's like, hey, for effectively 6 points, you can combine any two aspects that you can reasonably combine. And that just sort of like flicked a switch in my brain where I'm like, oh, it's on now. Right? Like, what is the most abhorrent thing that I can combine two of these aspects into, right? Like, and it gives it so much flavor. It acts as its own springboard for ideas.
Well, so cool. Back in the old days, again, before the Wildsea was the Wildsea, aspects didn't exist. Or rather they did, but only as components of rigs, which were, I think that's still what they're called now. I haven't looked at the rules for a while. But yeah, they existed as parts of larger things. You couldn't take a single aspect; you had to combine them as part of creating your character. But the concept in the end was dropped for a while because it just made things too complex. And then brought back in the, hey, once you've played with some aspects for a while and you've got a good sense of your character, it is time to combine them and do with them what you will. So
It's interesting because it's like why would I combine these if I could just pick a new aspect? But then it's like, oh, but wait, now these two really cool aspects that each only had like 2 boxes now have a 4 box for both of them.
yeah.
Hmm.
Having those longer tracks on single things can be really useful. And I also love the fact that when you combine these things, it gives you a chance to narratively reflavor them. And that lets you grab advantage dice in ways that you wouldn't otherwise expect.
A great example of that is Zeetzi's chimeric amalgam.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is very
his
spory,
burning
if I remember
spider.
rightly. Was it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
mushrooms. You know,
Mushroom
The wild
spider bird, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a good one.
A spore is just a layer you use to avoid drying out.
Yes.
We're gonna take a quick pause here because Bev dropped again. So sorry.
Oh.
And we're back. Okay.
Woo.
Yeah. A lot of technical difficulties, of course, on the episode where we're trying not to have any technical difficulties.
As is tradition.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Or
As
if you
long as
have
I
those.
pause, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure can you guys hear me because I don't see myself
Yes.
showing up. Okay.
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. So we were in our little off talk while we were waiting for the program to restart and everything. We were discussing how, adding extra things to the system just to make it more complex isn't necessarily a good idea. And I agree with
essentially.
Yeah. I think,
Or at least leaving it up to the players to make it complex themselves.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, one of the things that we've been testing a little is slightly, not more complex, but slightly more in-depth rules for resource management as far as ships and journeys are concerned. Because it's been brought up by a few different playtesters that journeys can feel, especially if you are a kind of exploration-focused group, it feels like you're getting too much out of them without any real danger other than damage to the ship. Which I think is fair. So I'm playing with some extra rules for that, but I think they're going to end up as sidebar rules. And this is not me beholding myself to anything in the future, just so you know.
Yeah.
But they may end up as sidebar rules, things that like, hey, here are some systems that you can use if you want to add this layer of something onto your game, rather than me rewriting the entirety of journeys to make this extra thing part of the core experience. Because some groups don't need that. And it's much easier to say, here are the basics, and then here's some extra stuff, than here is this system that you then have to kind of cut down if you want to make it work for your table.
No, exactly. And I mean, we did a 2-episode part where we did a journey to try and get, before we got to the skin farms, they had to go through a long journey. And I don't know if you remember, but I really tried to make journeying as unfun as possible because I wanted to break the system. And so I broke the entire journey down, was broken into boxes of days, and each box of day was broken into boxes of hours. Not like I think each box was 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so every time they did like a movement, it was either 1 box of movement or 2 boxes of movement. And then anytime they did an action that wasn't a movement, it took up a box of time, and sleeping took up a box of time. And like I really tried to make it finicky and hard and not fun. And we ended up really enjoying the episode so much that it became a 2-parter episode.
That's a successful failure, I guess.
Yeah.
Because we were like, let's try to see what this can do. Like, let's really take this up for a spin, and we had a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to the point where that could have been like 4 or 5 episodes and a full journey thing with a time crunch, and it would have felt like narratively important, and there would have been stakes because like as the players were going through the boxes, that meant their time was going down, and like yeah, it added an element that it was neat. I don't think I would use it every time for sure, but as I say, I tried to push it to make it as granular and unfun as possible, but it didn't make it unfun, so task failed successfully.
Yeah, task failed successfully.
I also liked having it a little bit more codified of like, this is how much time this section takes. So like in one day you basically have 3 travel actions where you can do stuff, which means that saying like, hey, I'm going to drop anchor is an option. Like you could say like, hey, I'm going to drop anchor so we can all like heal or fix the ship or something, and then get moving again. And it's not like you're spending an entire day doing that.
Yeah. And that is the neat thing about a fiction, like a narrative system, where because as you say, you haven't quantified certain rules deliberately so that players can lend themselves to, you know, I want dropping anchor to take a full day and I want it to be a little exploration period, or I just want dropping anchor to be an action and it's done, I don't want to bother with it. And that's a nice flexibility for players.
Yeah, flexibility is definitely what I aim for as far as the rules are concerned. And in some places they are a little too flexible, but you know, it's being worked on. But I don't want to make them too rigid, because I think a flexible rule set just lets you play with them more easily as you're setting up what's happening in the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Keeping things as simple as possible lets you add the complexity yourself, which means that they are more easily tailored to whatever you're doing, and I think that's important.
I completely agree. I 100% agree with that sentiment. That's exactly how I feel about it. Like every single thing that we've run into where we're like, this is too loose, or we don't know exactly how this functions, we've found a placeholder just being like, yeah, we just do something like this. And then they were like, okay, no, actually, that's really good. Let's just roll with it. And then it just became part of the system for however long that rule was necessary, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of fun with some very crunchy games every now and then. But I've rarely had varied experiences with them that don't force the system to work in slightly awkward ways. Because very crunchy games typically have systems that are geared towards a few specific things to either accurately recreate or at least give a sense of fun to these particular actions. And that's great if those are the actions you want to take. And while I was playing those games, that was great as well. But like, there is a certain flippancy, I guess, in me that makes me want to occasionally do a kind of Master Chef, Iron Chef crossover thing, or Battle of the Bands, or you know, what are we doing this episode? Oh, we're just climbing a mountain. You don't even build a ship; just go for it. You know, and keeping the rules flexible means that you can do those things a lot more easily, and I just enjoy that.
Actually, that leads into another question. Because the system is so flexible and wonderful in that regard, we're going to be running starting next week, I think. Not next week for listeners, next week in real time for us. I have no idea when it would be for listeners. Sorry. But next week for us, we're going to start running a monster game using the Wildsea system.
Oh, I'd like to be told about this. This sounds fun.
Yeah. So we have, I can link you later on, but we've edited the character sheet and we've taken out all of the languages, because as much as I enjoy languages in the Wildsea, it wasn't particularly what we were going for in this game.
Yep, that's fine. Languages are a finicky beast.
Yeah.
They've come up a lot on the Discord.
Oh yeah, they have.
I like them. I will say that, and we can move on. But
I stopped paying attention for like a second. What are we talking about?
We like languages.
Languages. Okay.
Ian likes languages but can't speak them.
Yeah. I was like, are we talking about skills? Oh no, we're talking about skills.
Sanguine is
I tried. I tried to say that word, okay? I really tried.
Why use MediWord when few word do good?
Bigger word is best word.
SeaWorld. You mean you're going to SeaWorld or you're going to see the world? SeaWorld.
Yes.
So we took out we kept in here. Let me pull it up so I can at least know what I'm talking about. But our monster game, we've added in where languages were. Instead, we've added in types. So like elements, so like water, fire, electric, ice, flying, flora, fauna, mineral.
No heart though.
What have
No
you done to my boy?
I know. And
Made it
He took a
beautiful.
dip in a pool of crez. Don't worry about it.
and we've allocated, so types are for so every person gets a monster, and that's kind of like they're soulbound together, or their fates are intertwined, or whatever kind of wording you want to use for that.
Digidestined, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the word I want to use, and I will.
So we kept edges in. So edges are for people. All the creation and social skills are for people. But combat can be shared by people or monsters, and the movement, detection, and survival skills are shared by people or monsters, and the types are just for monsters. So when you're building your dice pool, if you're using just your character, like a person, it's your edges plus whatever skill. But if you're using your monster, it's your type plus whatever skill.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And then aspects, we've just kind of butchered some of the aspects and said, oh, this aspect kind of fits for this thing. Like I have 1,000 needles, and I've just used that as a hedgehog aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's on my hedgehog versus on my character. And we're going to try and see how the system runs as a monster game.
Hey, I say go for it. Like, I am in full support of this.
I took by a thread, so let's see how that goes.
I am actually I have a question based on this.
Yeah.
When you say you're using the edges, are you using the same edges?
We are currently using the same edges. I thought about making new edges, but that seemed like a lot of work, and you already did it. So
let me tell you about the first person who got in touch with me to say, like, hey, I hope you don't mind. I'm making a kind of hack of the Wildsea for like a kind of standard fantasy type thing. And I was like, well, standard fantasy is not really my creative bag, but like I've played a lot of it. And nothing wrong with it. I like playing a half orc. Don't know why, just happen to like half orcs. Show me what you've got. And he did, and it was pretty damn good, really. And the first thing I said was like, what are you going to do with the edges? And he was like, what do you mean? So, well, what are you going to make for the edges? How are you changing them? He was like, oh, I wasn't going to. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, you don't have to, obviously, but it's what I would have done. And of course, when I say it's what I would have done, we're talking about the thing I made. It was like, oh no, what do you suggest? Like I was like, no, you don't feel you have to. It's a thing, yeah. But then we talked it through a bit and just said, like, oh, here's why I chose the edges I did. Here's why they work for the Wildsea as a setting, and here are some alternate ones that I almost used but didn't in the end. We chatted about it for a bit, and then a few weeks later, he came back. And sent me a message on Discord and was like, hey, so I've got this new list of edges. Can I run them past you? And I was like, yeah, no problem at all. And he does. And inherently, they just felt better for what he was doing. And I asked him how he felt about it. And he was like, they just feel better. And I was like, yeah, damn right they do. Because you've just codified the basis of your world. Like, these are the ways your characters think about or interact with everything. Edges are, by definition... I shouldn't shoot myself in the foot by saying useless. The edges are by definition like, oh, you need 1d6, throw an edge in there, mechanically speaking. Like they're super simple. But in terms of flavoring, they can be really important.
Definitely. Like we've used edges to flavor so many things differently than how it could have gone or how it should have gone.
Yeah. And they're meant to be, they're by design, they're catch-all. They just act as that essential 1d6. Because when you've got 3 edges, your character, you've chosen them for your character is normally doing something which matches at least one of their edges. So it's an almost guaranteed basic die. And that's great. But when you change them for a different setting, they need to, I would say, and my word is not gospel, despite the fact I made the game. Like, you do what you like, but I would say that those edges you choose, they should reflect the basic approaches or basic elements of that world.
Well, now you got me thinking, and I'm gonna have to yell at Austin, and we'll have to.
Yeah, I was just like, now I'm gonna have to go through the entire list because the premise was supposed to be like current verdant wave type survival situation. Survive the green tide in the modern age.
I mean, I don't want to reveal too much about upcoming stuff that may never exist, obviously, because it's one of the kind of curse of doing this as a job now, I guess, which I do, which is still very strange to think about, is that I have to be thinking about what's coming next. And I've got the Wild Words. It's a nice engine. I should probably keep using it. And I was thinking about, if I was doing it in this kind of setting versus this kind of setting, what edges would I do? And I just had a lot of fun going through making kind of sets of 7 edges that represented different settings.
Actually,
it's just I think it's important, personally.
No,
that's a great idea, and it's something I didn't even think about.
Well, it's kind of like how D&D has the 6 attributes, where you have like your strength, which is carrying capacity and how much you hit, and then you have your dexterity, which does a lot of stuff, and then you have your charisma, which people kind of dump unless they want to be charismatic, or
I don't understand
intelligence,
that. I always pump everything into charisma, no matter what I'm playing.
I usually play high charisma characters too. High charisma half-orcs, that's my niche indeed.
Right? Oh yeah, I mean, like, high charisma druids all the time for me. Just all about that.
Then you have like in 5e you have intelligence. People are like, well, I want to be smart, so they put points into intelligence, and then they're like, hey, we've been gaming for we've been gaming for like 5 months. I've never rolled intelligence. Does this attribute do anything? And they're like, well, are you an artificer or a wizard? No. Well, then why did you put points into it? Whereas Wildsea, it's like, here's your 7 edges. They just represent how you do stuff.
Yeah.
None of them are how smart or pretty you are. They're just...
It's your approach to the world.
Yeah.
And as you say, like when you said codified, it's like a legend for the world itself.
Right. I use them for like everything so much I feel like I'm cheating.
No, but you're meant to. You are doing.
I know. It's like fine. I'm like, hey, can I add a dice to this roll? Because bullshit reason over here. Skills.
No, it's not bullshit reason over here. It's epic narrative.
It's epic. Yeah, I know. I'm like, what can I pull out of the air? Yeah, to suggest. I mean, like, I'm using my brain. Great.
That's something I love. That's something I really love about listening to people play this. And you've all done it yourself as well. And I've loved listening to it. It's like, how can I get an extra die from this? From the mechanical side of things. But then as you go through your character sheet and you're like, oh, I could use this. Wait, I could use this. And then you get really enthused about it. And it kind of adds that flavor to the scene. And it sends things off in an unexpected direction. Like, hey,
I love that
the
moment.
Dog could help with this. And if the dog helps with this, then, it's great.
The dog is always helping with it.
Yeah.
You can hear it in the episode recordings, the moments of wild epiphany.
Well, yeah, like, I love the feeling of, like, this is a Hail Mary. I don't... Like, I'm definitely rolling 1 or 2 dice, taking the lowest. It's not going to be... Wait a minute. There's something that can help me out with this.
Tums.
Okay, I got a die. Yeah, Tums. Gosh, I loved it when I was like, Tums, remember your training.
Yeah, dude, hype. So good.
Proceeds to flail like he's getting taken for the skin farm.
There's nothing worse than having an epiphany idea. Oh. Sorry.
Before we actually started recording, we were discussing that episode where Tums remembers his training. And I don't know if we said in that episode, but all of our guest star Doug's quotes were off of a quote generator. Like every word he spoke in that episode was from a quote generator.
I suspected that after a little while. I'm like, he's using a generator, isn't he? He totally is.
I just thought he was being purposely opaque.
Was it like a platitude generator or something?
Well, I mean, when he's opaque IRL,
it was a specific person.
Yeah.
Like, I want to tell my coworkers or I want to tell my employees to work harder, but I want to sound smart when I say it. Every chance not taken to its fullest is a chance left on the floor. There we go. Perfect. All right, everyone. There we go. Morning meeting over. You know what to do. Get to work.
No,
Deepak Chopra, anyone? I said Deepak Chopra, anyone?
Yeah.
Isn't that the generator he was using?
I don't remember which one specifically he was using, but he came to me and he goes, Ian, I hope you realize that by asking me to guest star in your game, I'm gonna be ridiculous. And I said, okay, sure. How ridiculous do you want to be? And he says, I'd like to do a character where everything is just a random generated quote that's inspirational in some way, and somehow his crew exactly understands what he wants. Like, they don't speak in quotes, but they understand what he wants. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's see how it goes. And yeah, it turned into a absolutely ridiculous episode. And the funny thing is
it worked so well.
At the end of that episode, after we finished and everything, Doug messages me and he's like, you realize I won that episode? and I asked him, I go, what do you mean? They got Tums Tums back. Like, Tums Tums is safe. He's okay. You didn't steal Tums Tums. And he goes, but I did get the 2 ships because they left and fled. I can now go back and scavenge those 2 ships. And I was like, whoa, you were thinking long game here. Like you
now we were gonna leave. A, we were gonna leave anyways, and B, you told us a Leviathan was coming. You can't lie. That's against the rule.
Well, yeah, no, I did tell you scary things were coming. I wanted you guys to leave, but like Doug had fully fleshed out his, one-shot character to the point where he had goals for that character 3 episodes down the line when he wasn't even playing.
I really want him to return.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Doug will be back in season 2, I'm sure.
Spoilers.
You left these ships behind, and so I took them. Except, like said in a, just a way. But we're like, we get it. Yeah, we know. No, we know.
But you gotta read the literature, man.
There's actually some really good stuff in here.
It's actually, I was thinking about it. Really helped me get through my day.
Just starts reading it to Tums Tums' bedtime story.
Oh, no!
Do not read propaganda to your children.
Actually, talking about our episodes, Felix, do you have any questions about or any comments on some of the episodes we've done, or as the creator, have we scared you?
Your favorite is what we want. No, I'm kidding.
Who my favorite is? I mean, that is Tums Tums. I don't want to offend you here, but Tums Tums is easily the best.
I don't blame you. Tums Tums is fabulous.
Yeah,
and an original character.
Yes, definitely extremely original.
We added an S.
Not taken from any licensed property that has ever existed.
Just like Rocky and Colt.
Yeah, exactly like them.
And the Delta Flyer.
So I listened to the other episodes a while back, and then I listened to most of the more recent ones that were sent over the last kind of 4 days or so. And I had forgotten about the Delta Flyer being mentioned. So as I was listening, I was like, joke about the Delta Flyer. Oh, great. Oh, no, it's not a joke. It is called the Delta. Okay, that's fine. I had to kind of reacclimatize myself to that. But the one thing that struck me listening again was the growing influence of Sornanas
Mm-hmm.
Yes!
And I cannot remember the genesis of the Sornana, but like they are so ingrained in my head after the last few days of listening that they feel like a thing I made, but I didn't make them. Like they're not in the book, but they get talked about so much.
They're just so utility.
They're
So
just
Also terrifying.
yeah. So my main question, my first main question: who made the Sornana?
Who did?
And
Austin,
who
that was
that
me.
person?
That was me.
It was someone
And
else.
to be
Okay.
fair, all of us were particularly hurt that day. We all chose bad things.
it's true.
There was also a mountain on fire and some type of goat with no body and infinite legs.
Legos.
Oh, yeah.
Legus. Oh, yeah.
You know what we could also call those is Lego Mores as opposed to Lego Lesses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the Sornana. Like it's just fantastic.
Yeah.
And we've gotten so much use out of it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a quote unquote good fruit.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to go back and get more of those.
That is one of the things that I think is a genuine strength, not of the system. This has nothing to do with the mechanics at all, but of the setting. And it's one of the few things I'm genuinely proud of because I wrote it this way on purpose. And me writing things in ways on purpose is very rare. Normally it's happy accident when something's good. But I specifically wrote the setting based around big, simple pillars and then the occasional small detail thrown in there. And then reaches, which are all the medium details, are off towards the end of the book. Like, yeah, you can use a reach, you can not use a reach, up to you. Do what you like. But like, the sea is made of trees, there are ships, chainsaw prows, that's all the big stuff. And then occasionally throw something in like the slaughter melon, the spiky melon with a grudge. And it's amazing how many sessions centered around one of those tiny details. And more often than I would ever have expected, those tiny details have been dangerous fruit. And the Sornana is just adding to that pile of dangerous fruit.
I have an explanation for mine.
Okay, go for it.
I grew up reading the Piers Anthony Xanth books.
Uh-huh.
And those are nothing but puns from cover to cover. Like every pun you can think of. There's puns about people hugging real close to bring the stork. There's puns about pineapples being grenades. Meat steak tomatoes are actually steaks that grow on trees. And the whole and I just drew so much punnery from that. It's affected a lot of my jokes and the things I think up.
Well, it
like
worked
there's even the pun
particularly
builds.
well.
The only Pierce Anthony book I've read is The Dastard, and I don't know why I haven't read more. I just picked that one up randomly at the library, and then the next week, after I'd finished reading it, people were talking about it. I was like, "Oh, I've read that." They're like, "No, you didn't," because it was high school, and that's what people do to, gatekeep. You haven't read this book, and I'm like, well, okay, sure.
I mean, but I did. I remember that. Yeah. Stupid ass.
Well, let's ask you 5 questions about it. No.
Yeah. Talking about books, in the system, I know there's been a lot of talk on Discord about charts and how they're working and what you're doing with charts. I think one of the big things that was discussed semi-recently was making charts for like the crafting and cooking kind of skills. So like making recipes. And also adding like language tags to charts to make languages tie into that a little more. What's your, without giving away too many spoilers and stuff, what's your thoughts on that discussion?
Oh, well, I can't give away many spoilers because I don't know the answer, which I'm sure is not the best thing for the creator of a thing to say.
No,
but I think it's important to be honest sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair. It's an interesting topic.
Charts are one of those things, or let me take it up a level. Resources are one of those things that made perfect sense on paper, and then in play, I started to see the imbalance. And once I'd seen the imbalance, it was hard to go back to the on-paper version, or on-screen, I guess, technically, and work out why I hadn't noticed there'd be such an imbalance. Because salvage and specimens are the perfect mirror of each other. They are both used to create things. They are both found from the world around you. They are both easy to collect in various ways. That might be quite hard to find good ones. They are both obviously expended in certain situations and can be used easily to kind of boost up a variety of roles. Like, all that stuff is simple. Salvage, specimens, great. And then charts and whispers felt like the same thing. Whispers were bits of information that existed inside your head. Charts were bits of information that existed in the real world. They both created new things, essentially. Whispers changed the world around you. Charts created places. I mean, not technically, but theoretically, in terms of the mechanics. But then seeing the game being played pointed out the fact that you're only ever going to new places every now and then, whereas you can use a whisper whenever the hell you want. And that is such a huge disparity in terms of the actual application, the narrative application of these mechanical objects, that charts do need some buffing up. Just in terms of how they're used and how they interact with other systems and what they can do. But although there's been a lot of talk back and forth about it, and a few good ideas bandied around too, I have not yet settled on what I'm doing with them.
That's fair.
I know we started to explore that a little bit. Like, we started to say, well, you know, why do charts only have to be maps? And so I think that we started being like, hey, what if like recipes are also charts?
Yeah, we pulled that from Discord. I forget who actually started it, but yeah, we have used that.
It's actually something I've been using in the redacted campaign that exists, where in their chart section, one of the characters currently has a scorpion where the scorpion's tail points the way to a particular living storm, and like it's not a chart, but it acts like a chart. It gets you to a place. So you know, there's stuff I need to kind of play with the definition of what a chart can be and what a chart can do.
Yeah, I think I was in that one of those conversations. I tune in every now and then.
Yeah.
Like, another idea that I think I pitched was like, what if charts are basically like a written whisper? And so whenever you need to find something by using a chart, you're basically saying, I know how to get to this place.
Yeah.
And then you can find it. And
well, whispers themselves are a kind of unknown quantity in some way. Because there are some...
I love whispers.
I love whispers too. And again, happy accident, believe me.
Yeah, like...
But like some groups treat whispers as... I mean, they're written as actual kind of living, almost semi-parasitic words that exist in your head, or are occasionally bottled, if you're some people, which is weird, but fine. And they are deployed and they have an effect on the world. But then other people treat whispers as more chart-like. They are potential. These things already exist. These events would have happened. And the whisper is more of a meta resource to make sure it happens in the way you want it to happen. So there is this kind of conflict between the arcanautic side of things and the more this is fate side of things, which I find quite interesting. And it's interesting to try and write for both of them at the same time.
I love the idea that whispers are they're not mysterious. They exist. Everybody knows that whispers exist. Magic exists. It's real. Nobody's going to be like, what? When you use a whisper, everybody's going to be like, oh yeah, that's a good whisper. Good job. To the point where you can just trade for whispers. You can go to a market and be like, hey, I have these I have these 3 Legos in a cage, and I will trade these for a whisper involving the weather. And that merchant could be like, yeah, I have one of those.
I have storms in the east. How about that?
I have bone dry luck. Like, ooh, yeah, okay, I could do some stuff with that. Cool, all right.
Well, it's weird, actually, in a way that you should say that whispers are kind of a commonplace thing in the world, which they are, obviously. They're written that way. But every time I've had an NPC use them, the players have always been really shocked. There was a particular game where they arrived, I think it was in the Interregnum, actually. Yeah. the characters, or the crew, I suppose, trying to avoid characters. The crew arrive at port, and one of the NPCs is like, "Hey, you shouldn't be here. You should leave." And the crew are like, "We're not going to leave." So, okay, then you can stay, and used a whisper to kind of thorn chain their ship to the dock so it can't leave. And it's like, yeah, in a few days, it's going to crush your ship. That's life. Sorry, guys. And everyone was like, he can't do that. And it's like, no, he literally can. Like, he had a whisper. Like, that's what the whisper did. He can't do it again, but like he did it.
Our ship was great too because we loaded it up. I think we get like 3 whispers every time we dock or something, or is it like 3 things to salvage?
Yeah, you
2
get
whispers,
2 specimens and a whisper every time you dock, which is just wonderful.
Our
we
ship
also
is
get
such a resource farm.
Yeah, or if we just cut a path, which is like the slow movement, we also get whispers. It's so good.
Oh, didn't you make a still for your ship?
We did.
Yes, we did.
Did. And not just a still, also a disco.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So on our ship, I don't know if you've gotten to the disco episode yet.
I don't think I've gotten to the disco episode. No, I've had room
Okay.
full of moths and still.
Yeah, so the still we created because, I mean, the Char and the Steep are just such amazing characters. It's wonderful. So I thought, like, besides the galley, what is a cool thing for the ship? And so we made the advanced distillery. Take a montage action to turn any specimen into a liquid with the pure tag. And yeah, just work something as a still. And so I think, what does Jisun have? Jisun has pure gator scorp poison, which he distilled. And I think he also distilled, I think you guys distilled some perfume, and you've distilled, I'm not going to give away spoilers for the last episode because Felix,
yes,
I really hope
don't, because I'm looking forward to hearing it.
Yeah, I really hope you listen to it, but I believe he uses the still to make something in the last episode.
Oh, I'm going to listen to it. I'm engaged in the story now. Like, I want to know what happens.
The still makes something, and the something goes off the rails. It's good. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
That's it.
Also, this is going to make me sound really sad. Well, I'd say anyway. Every now and then, I kind of forget that I made the game when I'm listening to you playing it, and then you'll reference something directly from the book, and I'm like, "Oh, I wrote that." Oh, and it's just this really nice little moment because you're so off script, using your own kind of reaches and your own stuff, and the Sornanas, and the you're doing your own thing, and you don't intersect with the stuff in the book that much until an aspect or something similar comes up, and I love that. It's just a genuinely nice kind of fanboyish feeling. It's like, oh, they're talking about my thing, yay!
That's actually really awesome to hear because we tend to take systems and we tend to break them, and I don't know if creators are always too happy with how we break their systems.
If a creator isn't happy with how I break their system, I just do it more. Like,
yeah.
You don't pay my sub.
Yeah,
I think these things exist to be broken. Like,
yeah.
I won't play Exalted with the Exalted system. I will do it with almost any other system, but I will not play Exalted with the Exalted system. It's not going to happen.
There's different systems, and they the setting lends itself to certain things. Like the Wildsea, it could
such
be
a
played
good scaffold.
Like, we could play the Wildsea with Fellowship, and we might end up doing it one day just to see how it goes, because the setting alone is such an interesting setting, but the way you've designed the system works so well with the setting, but it also could work with other settings. As I say, we're going to try and do a monster setting, and we'll probably end up running something else eventually too. But it's just, I must say, I like the system. It feels like all the best parts of Fellowship and all the best parts of just traditional D&D. It mashes them together nicely.
Well, I'm glad you enjoy it. I mean, I could lie and say I enjoyed making it, but I didn't.
No,
there were a lot of iterations where everything went horribly wrong before I settled on stuff that worked.
Austin can attest. Austin and I attempted a long time ago to make a Pokemon game, and whilst we finished the game, and I'm happy with the result.
It's very playable.
It is very playable. Boy, is it a dumpster fire!
Oh man, it is just a smelly dumpster fire.
Yeah. I'm just gonna nudge you and say tiny mechs here, bro. Like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, I've also worked on another tabletop system with Dylan with like mechs.
It's a nightmare. It's an endless fountain of energy that you just pour in, and the fact that you have suffered to this extent so that we have this amazing tool here is so great. Like, again, this has been the most fun that I've had role playing in a very long time, and I'm looking forward to running my own sessions of it in the future.
Oh, thank you. I'm really honored. I mean, that's always nice to hear.
That being said, I did make a role playing game called Triassic Fun Center, which is a completely original idea.
Yes, it sounds.
And it's playable, I think. It's like, what if Jurassic Park, but you're like a churro salesperson, and then all the stuff happens?
That sounds quite fun, though. Like, I would play that. I mean, to be fair, apart from the Wildsea, the only thing I've made, although I haven't distributed it because I'm terrible at that kind of thing, was a 10-minute micro game called "Congratulations, You've Gone 0 Days Without a Serious Accident," which is based around.
Sounds hilarious.
It was surprisingly fun the few times we've played it, but it's just based around like the concept of Rube Goldberg machines in industrial settings. So every player is a character who has a seemingly innocuous item which will lead to their eventual death at the end of the workday. And it's just playing the horrendous circumstances that kill everyone. It's not the most cheery game in the world, except cheeriness is enforced because it's based specifically on those like 80s work safety videos. So
oh yeah, like the old like, hello children, do you want to stay safe today?
Man,
exactly. It's all based on that kind of stuff, but it's just
I've seen such good ones. Oh man, there's a German one that's amazing. It like ends with like an impaled dude who's cut in half with a chainsaw. But like the driver of that lift is like decapitated and driving away into the sunset.
I laugh at that.
It took about an hour to build up to that. Don't do things without a permit, people. Pay attention.
I think I'm just not going to work for that company.
Yeah, I'll throw that micro game out there at some point. You can have some fun with it, maybe.
Yeah,
it
sounds nifty.
It's so far from the Wildsea in so many ways.
You've seen how we play the Wildsea. It's really not.
Yes, okay. It's so far from my Wildsea in so many ways.
Yeah. No, we've had a lot of fun doing the Wildsea, and it's interesting to hear that you think we've gone off the rails and done such different things, but
in the nicest way, you understand.
Yeah, no, I yeah. But as you say, like, you know, the one campaign where they just did an Iron Chef tournament.
Yeah.
That
sounds awesome.
That was wonderful and amazing and still done in the so yeah, it's neat that it can lend itself to so many different things.
The thing is too is it was funny how you mentioned it was funny how you mentioned the Iron Chef and a music competition, because I think we've had both of those kind of in our thing.
That's just Jisan. That description.
That's all because of Jisan.
That's just him.
Actually, talking about whispers used by NPCs, I believe it was Portobello who used a whisper to just leave a room.
Was this after he was beaten?
Yeah.
Portobello, man. Like, what an NPC. You want to talk about your favorite being Tums Tums? Like actually getting to play against Portobello has been one of the most satisfying challenges of my entire life, because it's just me and Ian sitting across the board, right? And we're looking at each other, and he's just like, "Oh, it's on, like it's time now. We're in full mental duel mode." And I can't get around his power. He just he stylishly outwits me, and now Portobello is like one of my favorite creations ever. Oh,
has Gomez met Portobello yet? I can't remember if he actually has.
We've deliberately kept Gomez away from Portobello.
Not gonna lie, I was in the grocery store yesterday and I saw some Portobellos, and there was a little part of me that wanted to buy them just so I could defeat them.
Yeah,
it's
just be like, you.
Portobello was up there with the pettiest use of a reality altering whisper I've ever seen.
Yeah. I can imagine cooking the Portobello mushrooms, being like, "Ha, you've been defeated," and you take a bite, and you're like, "Damn it, it's delicious."
You'll get indigestion later, and then he'll have the last laugh.
Yeah.
This is the best meal I've ever had, and I'll never be able to have it again. And then Portobello's in the next room, like, "You'll never be able to kill me in a way that matters."
I actually had a question.
Yeah.
I, to all of you, in fact, separately, individually, what have you found yourselves making to add flavor to the world? Not like, oh, what's the thing you've made that best stands out, etc. Just what are the things that you find your mind naturally drawn to when you're talking about bits of the world that don't appear in the book? Because one of the things that I found the most interesting in one of the recent episodes was a throwaway question about how a gal would sweat. And because I just never considered it. And it really grabbed me. I was like, oh my God, that makes sense. Maybe they would just shrivel up. Like, that's horrible, but it makes perfect sense. So yeah, that's my throw out question to all of you, is like, what are the bits you've made that you've enjoyed that have nothing to do with me?
I really like the concept of Chelicrae spawning below and coming up. Just to give them that more bestial, uncivilized thing that people seem to view them with.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I agree with your comment of Jisun has played the Gao so well, and his comments of as a Gao would, smile at you, or as a Gao would frown, and I agree. Those kind of comments I've really enjoyed the back and forth with Jisun on those parts.
I just like injecting technology into the setting. Because it almost sounds like it's oh yeah, it's just all bows and arrows and maybe some muskets, and I'm like, no. There's broadband radios. They're still there.
We're full on diesel punk, honestly, in our setting. At least
yeah.
And I am entirely happy with that.
Actually, it's Beezelpunk.
Dieselpunk, yes.
Yeah.
All right, I'm leaving the call. Everybody have a great night.
Oh no, I think my Wi-Fi might be about to drop. Wow.
Our game is Dieselpunk. My wife is shaking her head too now.
I got a pun in edgewise. I've succeeded for the night.
Oh, that was so good.
Also, I really enjoyed Ian's the forced contemplation of how do skin farms work.
I don't want to think about that.
I really like that.
Yeah, that was surprisingly dark. That one was
I didn't even plan to go that dark, too. That's the thing, is I was like, okay, I know how it started. So I was on Discord, and I was reading something. Someone was mentioning Chelicrae, and then someone was like, oh, it'd be really cool to do a gangster heist kind of, game. And then someone else mentioned something about the mob or something. And from there, my mind just went, okay, well, what if the Chelicrae had a mob? Because a mob of Chelicrae. Like, that's a hilarious pun unto itself in my mind. And then I went, okay, well, if they had a mob, maybe they'd create this kind of a thing or that kind of a thing. And then, what about how do Chelicrae get skins? And there was some talk on the Discord of like, oh, what if there's this communal like civilization that lives in partnership where the ancestors pass their skins down to the Chelicrae newborn, and it's this beautiful rite of passage, and it's nice and friendly, and it's done in a very healthy and good way. And I was like, what if there was the opposite of that?
Yeah, what if none of that?
This beautiful vision of unity. How about we make it oppression instead?
And yeah, so I was like, what would be the exact opposite of that? Because for everything, there's got to be an opposite, right? Like it adds depth to the setting. Like if you only have light, happy moments in your setting, it doesn't give you the depth. So I'm like, what if we add the opposite? And then it just kind of spiraled in my mind. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I just made skin farms. This is bad. We need to stop this. This is, oh boy, what did I do?
It's okay, Ian. You can ride Shiny into the afterlife.
Yeah. And yeah, so I kind of ran with it. And it actually set us up nicely for season 2, which hopefully will be us or them taking down the skin farm and like liberating these people.
A worthy goal.
Yeah. And
as we do all the side quests.
I keep saying what, sorry?
You keep saying Forever War wrong.
That's true. Forever War. I don't think Felix has gotten to the Forever War yet.
No, I don't
think
so.
Yeah. Like Wookiees have their life debt, which is basically like they find a human, which is basically a dog to them because Wookiees live for hundreds of years. And they're like, oh, this is a cute dog. I should really take care of it and like help it get better. And then the dog eventually dies from old age, but like humans just call it a life debt because as far as they're concerned, the debt lasts for life.
I had no
it's
idea
like that.
About that, but yeah.
But for the Ectus, it's like, no, this is a forever war. It's never going to go away. I'm going to be mad about this forever. This is the thing that I will complain to my grandchildren about.
As is tradition.
That's actually you brought up things that we injected into the setting, and the Forever War. Again, unfortunately, you're not there yet, but that is a great thing that Jonathan created, and it gave the Ectus such a depth in our setting, and yeah.
I always love seeing an Ectus character because the Ectus are criminally underplayed.
Really?
I love them. Every character I make is an Ectus.
Yeah. I mean, I play Ectus most of the time when I'm playing a character in the Wildsea too. Ectus or Chelicrae, I think I usually go with.
Heliovore?
Yes.
Is such a good aspect.
Yeah, it was the first one. It was the first Ectus aspect. It was in there even before the spines.
Yeah, like just the ability, like everybody else is like, man, I really need to take a heal action. I'm like, oh yeah, I've just been doing that. I just do that, guys.
Checks the weather forecast.
Yeah, it's been sunny all week. I'm back at full health. All of you guys need like pretty much like several days of bed rest.
Oh,
hey, do you guys want to like chill out while I fix the ship? Like that's fine.
There have definitely been like full like, oh, it's gone like 3 campaigns. Maybe I should heal Rook because those checks have been there since like 4 games ago. She's a gear rabbit. She never stops.
I'm
like one of those bunnies from the battery commercials.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember one time we were like, Rook, you need to sleep. You need to stop.
What?
Rook, you need to stop is a common theme of our game.
But like not even in a bad way. It's like, no, for your own good, you need to stop.
There's an entire episode where we just didn't, for her own good, let her stop. Like, nah, just let her go. She'll wear herself out.
Yeah, she's like, she's doing this out of guilt.
You guys will stop me, surely. Surely someone will stop me. Nope, you guys are just letting me go. And I have committed
Sitting
to
on the
this.
side with some fresh cheese on popcorn.
Really quick here. Felix, I see you're highlighting things. Do you want me to bring those up? Are you trying to...
No, that's me.
Oh, that's you. Okay, Austin.
Yeah, I'm not highlighting anything. I'm just lying on a sofa enjoying the conversation.
I'm just keeping track of
Fair
where
enough. I see somebody highlighting it, and I didn't know if I shared this with the group or not. So I for some reason thought it was Felix, and I'm just like, okay, somebody's highlighting these questions I have on the sheet. Is this a subtle hint? I don't do well with subtle hints. We've talked about this.
No, believe me, I am enamored with the fact that you think I am an organized enough person to be highlighting potential questions. I am literally lying on a sofa at 4:50 in the morning. I'm not highlighting anything.
Okay. Okay. Then I'm glad to know that I can just yell at Austin later. That brings me
I'm
joy.
used to it.
As is tradition.
Yeah, I guess one of the other topics on Discord that's been brought up a lot is the discussion of skills.
Oh, I knew as soon as you met, I knew you were going to say skills.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I really am, because this is not even a dead horse at this point. This is like full on fertilizer that has regrown into a tree that they're now beating.
So, fun fact about me: I have a tattoo on my inner upper arm, and it says the horse is dead in like big wanted poster print. Because oh boy, I like to complain about things a lot. So let's begin.
See, for a terrifying moment there, I thought you were going to say it's the skill list.
I do like SB.
It's the skill list. Jesus Christ, that's a big tattoo.
Oh, okay. So, like, I used to write White Wolf character sheets by hand, including all of the circles, and I got it down to like 3x5 cards with enough room for like descriptions of powers.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So then I look at character sheets online, and I'm like, these are dumb. I can do better. Look at all this wasted space.
I will say most of my, even though we have the very nice interactive play sheets, a lot of my kind of quickly made characters for the Wildsea are still just made in Notepad.
Mm-hmm, I can see that.
Yeah. I just got used to it over the years.
Yeah. I like the skills, though. Like, this game has really solid skills.
It does.
You've just earned the enmity of half the entire Discord.
Like, every time I hear complaints about skills, it's always, it could be better. It's not, this is bad. Like, 3rd edition D&D, it was bad. 3.5. Why is stealth still separated into 2 skills and perception still separated into 3 skills? Why do you keep doing this? In this game, it's like, no, we got it. We got basically everything here. If you don't see a skill that describes the thing you're trying to do, pick one and make it that skill. It's fine. Don't add more skills.
See, I understand where a lot of people's problems with the skill list come from. And if I were not the one that had made it, I think I'd probably agree with them. In a way,
yeah.
Like I'm slightly hanging myself by saying that, but
no,
I get it.
Before this comes out, it's okay.
It's great. Okay, just cut this whole section. No, but it's one of those things. If I could shrink the skill list and make it as evocative, I would happily do it. But I've tried. People on the Discord have definitely tried, and there have been some improvements, and a few things have been cut out, and there are a few things that are being considered to be cut out or rolled into one thing. And I'm very much trying to go through like a kind of kill your darlings process with the rules. Like, just because it's there and it works doesn't mean it's good. Just mean it works. Doesn't mean you can't experiment with it. Doesn't mean I can't throw it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I still haven't been able to effectively cut down the skill list by any real margin without losing something essential. I feel
that's the key, because when you sure, it's cool to have a small skill list or a small pool, and you're like, we have no unnecessary things, but at the same time you then end up, if you go too small, you end up stacking everything into one skill, and it's pointless not to have that skill.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of games will have perception or dexterity, for example, and if you have a 0 in that stat, your character's useless. And
there's also sorry,
just really quick here.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so like if you have a 0 in that stat, your character's useless. And if you have a, max in that stat, your character's the best. And it's like, okay, well, why do any of these other skills matter? What's the point? I always use this one. So in some ways, I do agree that you need options. Like, for example, in the Wildsea, and this is not don't take this as anything other than just a discussion, but you have
I'm readying myself already.
Speaking of hanging yourself.
I'm gonna get the full. Everyone's gonna be like, and sponsored by Nobody's Canceled. We don't like them.
Now we're really sponsored by nobody.
Wow.
But you have shoot and you have strike.
Yeah.
And up until Hex came along, that was basically your only two combat skills, quote unquote. Yeah. And so whilst there's some really cool things you can do with non-combat characters, for example, Ji-san punching people with salt-flavored chocolate and doing salt damage.
It's beautiful.
Which is amazing.
No, it was such a waste. I wanted to eat it so badly.
I know, me too!
But it also means if you do play, because some people play combat-oriented games, so if you don't put any points in strike or shoot, you now have a pointless character. So having only two options is limiting.
I know.
But at least you have two options versus if strike and shoot was just an attack skill, you know what I mean? Then why wouldn't I take an attack skill? Because otherwise I can't do damage. And
sorry.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, at some level you need granularity, and you're never gonna please everyone, no matter what level you get to. So, yeah. But go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's absolutely fine.
So, I remember an issue I had in a system a while ago, like years and years ago, where I went to the people who were running the game and I said, hey, I want to take heavy weapons as like a skill. Like my character was in the army, and I just realized that secondary skills are a thing that exist and you're apparently using now, so I think I should have this. And they were like, that's never going to come up. You don't need that. And I said, okay. And then a week later, someone brought a machine gun on top of a building, and I was like, I jump on the machine gun and use it. And they were like, well, you don't have the secondary skill. And I lost it. I was like, are you kidding me? So the skills are fine. There's 25 skills. 25 skills is enough to basically do everything. It's fine. You don't need more. And cutting it down is hard.
Yeah, cutting it down is hard.
The Discord could fight me. 25 skills is fine.
Okay.
The only thing that I get a little iffy on is languages costing as much as a skill.
Oh, but that's a whole different discussion.
but that, even that could be solved by just hey, are languages important? Can we just have 2 extra points that we just put in languages?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. That's that's a game to game thing. That's such an easy fix for anything. Or even just you could just add a side panel of languages.
Or
maybe
it turns out
more points.
The whole world speaks Losao.
Yeah. It's fine. It's not important. This game's fine.
I mean, bless Wildsea for his signaling. That's all I'll say.
The skills thing I find really interesting, especially the combat skills stuff, because strike and shoot was two of the last skills to be added. And they were added after initial playtesting, oddly enough. Because before that, you just used whatever came to mind for the situation. Usually, it was things like hack or break, but occasionally we had people using cook or wave walk for things like attacks. And I was always fine with that. It never bothered me at all. Because it's how you're flavoring that action. Just because you are attacking doesn't mean that attacking is the only thing you do. It's not a turn-based system, it's a focus-based system. So if you're describing how you leap out onto the wave, swing around a branch, then come down on the head of this kind of octopoidal horror threatening your ship, and then I say, okay, you roll it, and someone goes, okay, can I use wave walk for that? Hell yeah, you can. You go for it. That's really cool. I don't care if you're good at fighting, like TM. you have done a cool thing. You have used one of your skills to do a cool thing in the narrative. Use whatever you can. But with that said, there were, in early playtesting, some players who were just like, I want to make a combat character, someone who's just good at fighting. Like, not just good at it as in that's the only thing they do, but just good at it as in any situation, they are going to reliably be able to land hits. And that's where strike and shoot come from. Strike is it doesn't matter what you're doing in melee, you can hit people. And shoot is that it doesn't matter what you're doing at range, you can hit people. Like, they are just the catch-all skills. Whereas when I make characters, I never really take strike or shoot. I usually go with hack or break, depending on what kind of weapons I'm using, because they are useful for other things. Yeah, they're more niche in terms of actual combat, but they have that extra utility. And that's how I tend to think of skills, not as a list of things with complete predefined uses, but a list of things that my character is good at and that they can bend to other situations. One of the most effective combat characters I've ever seen was a Char who just used Cook to attack, and they did a great job. And they always made it fit the narrative, and I was fine with that.
That's definitely something that the system does well, is, as you say, it's can you fit this to the narrative? Can I describe this? And I know, like, all of the players here have done several times where they're doing something and then they go, can I use this? What about that? Like, can I roll with this for an advantage because of reasons? And I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's figure it out. Again, trying not to spoil too much, but there's an episode where Zitzi goes underwater and he uses the fact that most spiders' webs are aquaphobic as a narrative device, and get some dice for that. So as you say, it you don't need those skills. And as a Firefly, I think it comes down to some people play games where there's a very definitive, like, this is the skill for this, whereas other people play games where it's more freeform.
Yeah.
And it's bringing people into that freeform mindset where you can say, like, no, cooking is not just cooking. Cooking is whatever applies in that situation, Again, Jisun punched a ghost with chocolate bars. That's cooking. That like,
and yeah. I am fine with that. It's weird because it's one of the things that has deviated the most from my kind of early gaming chops, I guess. Because Call of Cthulhu is not known for its small skill list. I can't remember how many skills there were in Call of Cthulhu, 6th edition, 7th edition, whatever it was. But it was a lot. And it took up most of the character sheet. And I always remember in one of my first games trying to do something and being told that, sorry, although you're using a computer, you actually need the accounting skill for this particular thing. And wondering what kind of person would give their character the accounting skill in a game of Call of Cthulhu. Like, I don't want to throw shade at anyone. Like, I'm sure these people exist, but I've never, ever met one in all the time I've played Call of Cthulhu. And I've played for like 6 years, a couple of games a week.
So like, full disclosure, my first character got shot in the face. I had 3 constitution. They were like, you take 9 damage. It got around to my turn, and they're like, what do you do? And I was like, I died. I had 8 hit points, my dude. I don't know what you want from me.
Yeah.
I got shot and everybody ran away. I don't get up. So next character, I rolled Superman stats, and I rolled really young for age, because I think age was rolled. Don't quote me on that. I won't die on that hill.
That's all right. It's been a while for me as well. I wouldn't say
this
yes
is like
or no
9 years ago. So I had a lot to play around with, and in Call of Cthulhu, you can age yourself to get more skill points. So since I started young in the 1920s and had really good, I had a really good mental stats, and really good physical stats, I could actually take the hit to my physical stats to age my character up to being 81 years old. So I was like, all right, so like they were 15 years old and like marched as a young youth minister to the Battle of Gettysburg. That's a thing they did.
Perfect.
And yeah, I had accounting. I also had astronomy.
I've taken astronomy before.
I made a handyman character. It was great. Like it's like we open up a house and like, oh, the lights don't turn on, and I'm like, oh well, like fuse boxes in the basement. Hang on, let me get the halogen lamps out of my truck. We'll light this place up. You never want to go into a dark place. You can never trust the floors in these buildings. Like
I took
it's
home
so good.
inspection.
Yeah, it turns out a handyman really eats into the horror aspect of Call of Cthulhu.
I like that idea though.
Like, oh, the basement, it's pitch black. No, it's not.
Not anymore.
Well, the lights start to flicker. Oh, hey guys, we should get out of here. I know that my equipment is in tip-top shape, so the fact that these lights are flickering means that something weird is going on. Let's go. We're out.
So this is a really weird tangent, but have any of you ever seen, what is it, Paranormal Home Inspectors, I think it's called, or something?
I feel like I've seen ads for it, but I've never seen it, no.
Okay, so terrible show. It doesn't, like, the show in general doesn't matter, but it's a show where they have, like, someone come in and say, yeah, we think our house is haunted, and then they come and look at the house and go, oh, it does feel a bit scary, and then they have like a medium doing the whole like, oh yeah, I can, like, there's the ghosts of murdered twins in this house, but they've also got a handyman who just comes in and goes, oh yeah, there's different kind of paint on the wall over there, makes it look a bit like a shadow with the lights off, or oh, that door's hung improperly. Look, it's going to open it. Yep, open now, hasn't it? It's not a ghost, it's just the hinges. And but they put the handyman before the final thing. So like the process of the show is, this is a very scary house. Oh wait, no, it's not at all. Now you've got to try and scare me again, and it just doesn't work.
We've already broken the illusion. I'm not gonna
it's so good.
Sounds like the perfect show. You just watch 25 minutes and you don't watch the ending.
Sounds like there's a place that I used to have to go to for work a lot. It's a no longer in use mental hospital from way back when. When that sort of thing was used for horror movies. It's apparently one of the most haunted locations in the area. But just walking around that place all the time with like the people who take care of the space is hilarious, because you get people who like try to sneak on to like try and find ghosts, and like, you know, like teenagers who dared themselves to go into the building, and you know, like people talking about all these supernatural experiences, and the caretakers are like, yeah, no, like people saying like, I walked into this room and I felt a chill, and they're like, yeah, we don't heat that wing, guys.
Hey, I heard a sound from down the hall. Yeah, somebody was probably
we were
there.
vacuuming. You know, the greatest thing is also, did you know that if you go into a condemned building, the police won't go in after you because, you know, it's condemned. So they'll just like yell at you. So, you know, like they'll get people all the time who like try to break into this building. It's just like, yeah, you need to come out, and the cops, we're just going to wait for you because there's black mold in the building and the floors might collapse. So do what you want. We'll be out here.
Like, you being in there is shortening your lifespan. Yeah. You should come out. We're doing you a favor.
People who actually work in spaces that are apparently haunted are always really fun to talk to because they're so cynical. It's great.
I love the people who are like, well, we want to really be scientific about this. And then like skeptics are like, ooh, you really don't want us to do that. You really don't want us our help with that because it's not going to go well. Like, well, how do we know that this house is haunted? Well, have you looked at a non-haunted house? Have you taken readings? Have you noticed that they're very similar?
Right.
But what if it was a ghost that was doing the hoovering?
Now, you know what I do like?
Yeah, what if the vacuum was run by the ghost? What if the ghost turned off the AC?
Ghost, right?
So,
ghost was born.
In Wildsea, I love that ghosts just exist, right. And like at least in my headcanon, they exist super casually. Like they're just there.
I love it, and I love And I have enjoyed playing somebody who sees it and hates it. Just like, no, stop, don't.
And we're just like, hey, Rook, are there ghosts here?
Yes,
And Rook's like, yeah. And we're like, okay, cool.
I hate all of you.
Because ghosts just happen.
Well, one of the last things that happened in the January Plus campaign, which is a more private campaign, I guess. It's mostly for testing out milestone rules and things, so it's kind of an internal thing. But it's not internal players; they're just people from the Discord who are like, "Yeah, I'll give this a try, and I'll try this new stuff out."
Yeah.
But one of the things they did was that they were attacked by the Kiatigo pirates, who are the pirates that use Ghost as part of their thing. And they killed one of the Kiatigo pirates on their deck. And the Kiatigo pirate law is that when you kill a Kiatigo pirate, if the body is not recovered by sundown, it will rise as a ghost. And it did, just stuck on their ship, haunting them, but unable to touch them or really do anything. So it just became they were haunted by the soul of a very grumpy pirate. And it turned out that instead of kind of exercising this ghost, they made friends with her over the course of the next few episodes. And we actually had a surprisingly nice time just with the fact that, oh yeah, the ship's haunted, but it's fine. He's all right, really. He was trying to kill us, but like these kind of things happen at sea.
Right.
Stockholm syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in a
What's he
nice
gonna do,
way.
leave?
Yeah.
In a nice
not-
Who's abducted who?
All right, it's not Stockholm syndrome in this case. It's stuck-on syndrome.
Oh.
Actually, bringing up ghosts. So you've listened to the episode where, because Brooke took the Meyer, your ancestors whispered their disappointment.
Yeah.
What did you think of Rook's ancestors?
Oh,
If you remember.
that's the problem. That's one of the ones that I listened to a while back.
Okay.
So I can't remember the
that was-
specifics of that one like I can like the last 8 or so.
They are
Fair
literal
enough.
shades.
So Rook plays the techie kind of
I'm the
character.
Rattlehead, yeah.
Hmm.
I'm a nerd.
And yeah,
Gear rabbit.
and her ancestors are all jocks.
Basically.
So they whisper their disappointment in the fact that she can't lift heavy
She
objects.
doesn't even
I feel like I should remember this more than I did. I'm gonna have to go back and
it
listen to this again.
it was subtly implied. We didn't like lean into it too heavy, I think, in that episode.
Oh,
but we
okay.
just kind of planted the seed of that's kind of what's going on, of just like, because the way the Ardents are described in the book is like very like they have had to become like stocky and athletic to survive
Yeah.
in this crazy world, and she just kind of skipped that and just became, mechanical and stuff. So like, yeah, she's fully got the ancestry of, like these hardened by their rough lifestyle ancestors, and she's just over here being a nerd who's like, like I can lift 40 pounds on a good day type of thing. So yeah.
I think we should. I would love to lean more into to that in
Oh
season
yeah.
2.
Oh yeah.
I think it's kind of like I like the idea of just her not liking ghosts, but like also really not liking them because her relatives suck and they're all mean. They always show up to haunt her eventually
Yeah, that's fair.
and be like, I put together an engine made of bees. Pfft, whatever, we punch bees in the face.
Yeah. You shouldn't do that. Bees are really gentle.
Also, how? They're a swarm. That doesn't make any sense. You don't make any sense. High five. Shut up.
Why are we even high-fiving? That wasn't a good burn.
That's because there's no fire on the sea.
And then I guess continuing on with some of the questions here. Have you
Oh, they
considered-
highlighted.
Yeah, I got people highlighted.
Highlighted some of my favorites.
Have you considered any crossovers or collaborations with other like developers and systems and such?
So,
That you can talk about.
Yeah.
I think I can talk about this now because the contract's all signed. So,
Ooh.
Breaking news!
yeah, there is. I don't want to give too many specifics about the actual content being created because it's still in its kind of rough stages. But
Fair
You know, as a funny thing, we could just like redact this whole part. It would just be like
I mean,
edit sound.
this episode won't go live for like what, another 8 weeks at least.
So
So
that's how long you had to go. Wait,
It-
stop!
it may well have turned up by then, actually. In that case, I'll be a little bit more forthcoming than I were before. There is, back when I was creating the initial concept of reaches for the Wildsea, I was playing a game called Nowhere Profit, which is a fantastic game. I don't know if you've played it. If you haven't, you should. Great game.
profit. Okay.
It
Send out
is
the Googles.
yeah, it's got a beautiful art style. It's on Steam. It's not too expensive, and it is a kind of electro techno punk apocalypse with heavy Buddhist / Indian vibes to it. Like it's just a really beautiful world that is not explored very much in popular culture, at least in the West, obviously.
Yeah.
And I just fell in love with it, from the art to the writing to even the basic gameplay stuff. I just really enjoyed it. And I was one of their kind of beta testery type things, and I enjoyed doing that. Talked a little bit in brief to the creator. And then when the Wildsea stuff, when we got our money for the new reaches, and I could talk to collaborators and contributors, I just thought, like, shot in the dark, this guy really helped inspire me. I'm just going to write to him and see if he wants to make a reach. And then he just got back to me the next day and was like, yeah, that's cool. So,
Super chill about it.
yeah, and he is an absolutely lovely guy. And it was one of those weird moments where I spent the last few days before that with people talking to me, going, "Oh, you're Felix. You made this thing. It's really cool. Like, I'm really impressed." And me going, "Oh, it's nothing. It's I'm glad you like it. Thanks." And then I'm talking to this guy suddenly, and he's like, "Oh, I read over your stuff. I really enjoyed it." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you made Nowhere Profit. I love that game." So I had complete role reversal. I had to get all my fanboying out the way. But yeah, we are hopefully. I mean, don't hold me to anything apart
Yeah,
from.
no.
I say that with the contract signed, so we're definitely.
Someone's holding it to you.
Yes, exactly. That's the law. We're having a Nowhere Profit inspired reach specifically, so it is a more kind of futuristic techno punk version of the Wildsea, with kind of signal traps that contain the kind of dead. Well, I don't want to go too much into it, but it's very much a combination of spirituality and technomancy in a way that is just not normal for the rest of the waves. But hey, that's what reaches are about. I think reaches are about exploring the weirder concepts and the bits that, yeah, they might not be in everyone's sea, they might not be in most people's sea, but they're there to explore if you want them.
Can they be
I
in
hit-
RC?
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh,
That's like
definitely.
candy
That-
to me.
I mean,
sounds like an
you've
amazing
kind of gone in the right kind of direction, because you have the automatons and things down in the undereaves.
Yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
I was going to ask, because that episode we deliberately didn't roll dice and tried to make the system as narrative flow as possible. What did
Yeah.
you, as the creator, what did you think? Because I know earlier you said you don't mind people not using dice when it doesn't need it.
No, doesn't bother me at all, and I really enjoyed that episode. To be fair, I didn't even notice that you didn't roll dice. I was just listening to the story, and that's, I think, is a mark of quality for you guys. It's,
Oh,
That was
thanks.
such a fun episode.
I really enjoy it in particular because, and I was actually sitting in my living room with a friend, socially distanced, of course.
We're gonna judge you for a second, but then we were like,
I can't escape these
Get that
people.
joke
I
because
live
I
with them.
listen to the BBC.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was in the living room with a friend, and I was playing The Binding of Isaac. She was drawing, and the Undereaves episode was playing. And as I was kind of playing and listening, and she just looked over and said, you look really enthused." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am, because this isn't stuff I've made. Like, this is just listening to a group tell a story set in my world, but I am just as surprised as anyone else at their table by what's going to happen, because I don't know this place. This isn't mine." and it was great. I loved it. So
I would love to go back to the music museum sometime.
Right.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
just so good.
I
Because especially when you were dropping hints about what things were, and then various people at the table would be like, oh, and I'd be like, what have I missed? What is the thing? Oh no, I get it. So,
yeah, talking about hints, that everything loops back to skin farms.
Everything comes back to
I-
skin farms.
One
You
one
can't
thing
escape the skin farms.
one thing I really enjoyed as the Firefly was the episode before I revealed the skin farms. I dropped a ton of hints, or I thought I did, and I let and I also let the players roll so many dice to try and figure it out, and they just kept rolling ones and twos.
just watching around this town, being like, "Hey, you've got a lovely community here," and everyone's like, yeah,
It's really nice that you all. Yeah.
Where's the shopping district?
I'm like, where is it? Come on, let's go to a pub. Let's meet people and figure out why they're all staring at us weird.
Oh, that
was-
Let's give them a reason to stare at us.
Aren't you so glad you have medicine now? You can continue living your hell.
Bunch of Ralphs show up. I helped.
We're heroes.
Like, I just there's sometimes I personally am a firm believer in, like, Fireflies, GMs, DMs, whatever you want to call them, should tell their players things and shouldn't have a lot of secrets.
Yeah.
But with that said, there are times where there should be deliberate secrets.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed that none of them got that till the last minute. Because, that was just too good.
It's like there were feelings of like something's not right here. We don't really know what
We don't have
isn't
enough
right.
information yet to figure it out. We're just kind of enjoying
And then
it.
it's like, oh no, it's crime lords and their Chelicrae. And everybody here has skin. Oh no.
See, weirdly enough, I think the Chelicrae might just be really well suited for that, because in one of my kind of middle of the playtest games, where it was still middle of private playtesting, I had a 7 or 8 session campaign, just a short one, but it was really fun, where the kind of end point hinged around the introduction of this person who was a kind of a gentleman explorer type, and everyone absolutely loved them. Like, they just loved them. Such a lovely fellow, such a dashing chap, and they heard about this person for the entire time, and they couldn't work out why everyone else would actually pro them at all, because wherever he went, he just brought massive destruction and misfortune. But everyone just really liked him. And it was that moment where they finally met him and realized that he was a Chelicrae puppeting around a Gau's skin and just pushing out massive amounts of hallucinogenic spores wherever he went. So everyone around him was just constantly drugged up. And in such a good mood, despite the fact that... And there was an entire battalion of people desperately trying to kill this guy because he was essentially doing the old, like, Jessica Jones style things. Like, wherever he goes, people just do whatever he says, and they're really happy to do it.
I have a nightmare idea now. Oh no! A Chelicrae who has taken a Gau and has the spores, but like they're not the Chelicrae's spores. They're the Gau's spores, so they affect the Chelicrae. They're not immune to
They're
it.
just stoned all the time by their own existence, basically.
I'm also along on the ride.
Let's be real. The addition of hallucinogenic spores is one of those things that you know what you're doing when you put it in your game. There's no way that you can have that be an ignorant action. And I'm so glad that you included it as like such a raw base, close to the neck option.
I love
It is one of the first things that you read. You're like, oh, what are aspects? Oh, I see.
Spores.
You can just have a lot of fun with them.
Yes,
I mean,
please.
yeah.
They're so much fun. I mean, like, we gave those gorilla guys the time of their lives. And now we've got friends forever.
Worshippers, almost.
Yes.
There are a few aspects that feel really core to the experience to me, and hallucinogenic spores is one of the ones that crops up again and again and again. So I've obviously hit onto something good with that. People love it.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun one. The versatility of it is, yeah.
Yeah, I got a
just
fanboy
love the
for it.
minion tasks. Or the minion, or the companion aspects.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah,
Those are my favorite ones. I already have 3.
companions were a late addition to aspects. They were the
I
last
love
thing to
that
be added.
there are companions everywhere. Right, because like I'm
Yeah.
the kind of person that, like, you know, when you're creating a character, if there is an option to have an animal companion, I'm like, ooh, I want that one. And so then when we started building characters for this one, you know, like I'm going down the sheet and I'm like, oh, there's an animal companion, better get that. And then I go like the other levels and I'm like, there's animal companions everywhere, and the ship has animal companions. Yay!
Yeah.
Just like I just want a menagerie, but I had to limit myself.
Well,
Yeah, a lot of
I
games
was the kind of
pigeonhole you.
3.5 player who always bought, like, from the gear list that no one really cares about, always bought, like, sled dogs. Because why not?
I've done that.
Yeah.
I played a druid who, like, my animal companion is a dog, because dogs have, like, 18 strength. So my dog has, like, 22 strength now. And also, here are a bunch of other dogs that I just train, and they use trip attack. Here we go.
Best one I did was a mounted halfling on the riding dog.
Oh,
That's
Oh,
classic. I
using
love
using
that.
the lance crit build. So fun.
Yep.
my first draw from the deck of many things back when I was in university playing 3.5. I managed to get something which was like, hey, get a wish. And I was like, yeah, I want to turn this griffin into a dog. And I did, and it was great.
It's like,
Nice.
the genie, you could have wished for anything in the universe in the
Yeah.
palm of your hand. Yeah, but I wanted that to be a dog.
Because I hadn't been allowed to take a dog.
You could have had the griffin as its companion itself, but no, you wanted a dog.
There was a whole arc where I was playing
Deck of many things stories are
Pathfinder.
great.
There was a whole arc where I was playing Pathfinder as, I believe her name was Avid Carnelian. Not that it really matters. I just really liked that character name. And she was a something which I didn't really care about. But she had a cog, because it was the closest I could get to a dog, because I was specifically told no animal companions by the GM. So when I found a giant cog, I realized, like, that's what I have to do. I'm going to treat this cog like it's my animal companion, and it's going everywhere with me.
Oh god!
And this was not an insignificant cog. This was like a waist-high giant bit of machinery. I just rolled it everywhere or dragged it behind me, and in the end, I pushed it down some stairs and killed some goblins, I believe. So it all worked out.
Good boy.
Reminds me of my first Pathfinder character. It was a master summoner who just massive amounts of beetles every time. I just fire beetles, go!
But have you considered beetles?
If you could be Batman, be Batman. If you can have beetles, have
Or
beetles.
Yeah.
just bees.
Yeah,
I do
we
like
did a lot of
bees.
bees.
I didn't
I am on
expect
Team B.
how much on Team B I would become in this game. Like when we were building the engine, I'm like, I just like the idea. Like when I saw the beehive option, I'm like, I am drawn to this. And then it just became a thing, and I love it so much.
I like
love
it
how
way
we all
better
just-
than the A team.
Yeah, I love how we went from the Delta Flyer to the Bowbreaker,
Right.
and then found out that it had bees powering
Yeah.
it, and then we all were just so on board with Rook being Queen Bee.
I like being Queen Bee.
And you had people riding bees as well.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, I assume you've seen the art we posted a while back.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think I did. There has been. I don't
That's
mean
fair.
to. Again, I don't want to toot my own
Discord
horn.
moves a lot.
There's
No.
a lot of stuff that happens on the Discord, and I can't stay as up to date as I used to.
That's fair. No, it moves pretty quickly. I know I try and get on there every day or two just to see what cool things people have made. And yeah, there's a few times where I'm like, I'm not scrolling through all this. It's not doable.
Yeah.
Yeah. The latest is Salt Dave.
Yes.
Was I even? That was a.
Yeah. No.
Yes, I was talking about salt damage, but my phone was like, "You mean Dave, not damage."
Watch out for Salt, Dave. He'll
Oh.
get you.
Yeah, I'm like, all right. Well, so it's like this guy
Salt
with
is
like
the thing.
anchor tattoos on his feet, hands, and tongue, who just has resting grunt face, but is actually like a kind of like a teddy bear. People are like, "Hey, it's Salty Dave." He's like, "My name's not Salty, it's Salt, guys. Come on, don't do that."
Well, I,
You're gonna
I
make
think,
people think
I
I'm a
think the whole
jerk.
salt thing was because I was listening to that episode where you discussed salt damage.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah. No, it was, and that was again
How else are you
going
gonna
back.
defeat
Ji-san punching a ghost with a chocolate bar,
Yeah.
which is just the
The greatest
Um,
sacrifice.
We've all seen
For a fight.
Supernatural. We know how this works.
What did it cost?
yeah.
Everything.
It did cost everything. I'm still salty about that myself.
Every now and then I get a whiff of chocolate off my spear, and I have this like pang of longing in 1,000 stomachs.
Do you know what I've just realised?
What?
This was a conversation about skills.
That's where this started. Yes.
We have gone so far off the rails.
That's we're professionals here at Sponsored by Nobody. We stay on topic.
That's all right. I mean, you bought Reaches It as well, so like it's not like it's been all about just the
No,
thing.
I'm teasing. You've listened to our podcast. We are not great.
I was just highlighting how little I enjoy talking about skills.
That's good. No, that's fair.
Skills are fun.
Hey, Felix, tell me about the skills list. Well, in 3.5, I played a character with a giant cog.
I guess I do have.
Really?
Not a sexual
Oh
euphemism.
my.
These are the things we want to know.
Everything is a sexual euphemism. I mean, have you seen us?
That's fair.
What do you think Sonatas were?
I think the next episode I think for Felix he's going to listen to is our beach
You
episode.
made them better.
Oh, the beach.
And-
I'm looking forward to the beach.
yay!
Oh, we get
Attractus cactus.
I feel so
It's-
bad about my non-idea that turned into a whole thing,
it
which
was
will become
it's
understood
such a good
later.
episode.
I
So
apologize preemptively.
Yes, deepest
Absolutely.
apologies. Yeah,
I have to say that like this is the first game I've ever played with any of these people, and I don't know them since like before this. I listened to a lot of podcasts that Ian was in, so I'm like I know about where Ian's bar is kind of. I know it can probably go lower. It's fine. It's a rung. They're all rungs. The ladder just goes all the way down. So whenever anything comes up, I'm like sitting here having a panic attack. Like, oh no, do I lean into this or do I back off? I actually don't know. Oh no. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say. Oh no.
No, it was good. It's again no spoilers for Felix because he's.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Part of me wishes I will try and get Felix on maybe as a special guest star sometime in season 2 or something.
I'd love to do that.
And
yeah.
and we'll definitely before we start the episode or something, I'm sure Felix will have some comments to be like, "What the heck, guys? What was Attractus Cactus? Like, why would you do that?" And-
Because
that
you
bad.
need
I
a beach
I liked it.
episode.
I know. I'm teasing.
Honestly, I would absolutely do Attractus Cactus again, but more.
Yeah, that's fair.
Attractus or Cactuser.
Season 2. Are you ready?
Cactus
yeah.
Boogaloo.
And then also I am excited to hear thoughts on the final episode because there's some weird things in that one too that I think are yeah. If you've enjoyed some of the weirder things we've done, I think you're gonna like that as well.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it.
Back on the
But
Speaking of skills-
I've been told to inform you in no uncertain terms. I'm also starting to look forward to bed, seeing as it is now 5:30 a.m.
I will ask you one last question.
Yeah, you
and
go
then
for
we
it.
can be done because this is the mandatory question that I must ask.
Okay.
Given the great success of your Kickstarter,
Yes.
when is the second Kickstarter? Because you need to hurry up on that.
I don't even know what I do with a second Kickstarter for the Wildsea anyway.
I mean, like full page monster manual.
I
I would contribute to that.
can't
Turning
say
our characters
much.
into real NPCs officially. Sliding that in there.
I can't say much about monsters, and I can't say much about guest art. I will say the next Kickstarter update includes things about both, which is fun. But I am very, and this is going to come back to bite me, I am very anti-monster manual,
Really?
but only for my own stuff.
That's surprising because I
know
It
it
w-
is, isn't it?
it like it'd be really cool, and I think like not saying you need to do all the work, but like you can flesh out with the way that you have aspects, you could flesh out monsters to almost be a playable character with how aspects can be made so easily and efficiently. And it'd be really, again, this is completely me dreaming and hoping, and don't don't force into anything, but it'd be really cool to have like a monster manual slash more playable character options almost kind of thing, like just throwing a million extra aspects at, like it doesn't need to be a, because it's a supplemental quote unquote thing.
Yeah.
So it would give just, I like having all that kind of platform to jump off of as a Firefly. I know some people don't, but it's, yeah, just you can make so many cool things with the aspect system, and it's fairly grounded. So yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised that you're not a huge Monster Manual fan for your game.
Okay, so I've read, what is it, Fiend Folio 2 or whatever, like the one no one cared about. And I have a specific memory of back in the 3.5 days. My GM at the time, or DM, I suppose, at the time, Greg, lovely guy. Greg introduced this thing, and he described it really well. This shifting, pulsating mass of colors, and the other players around me were kind of looking at each other like, I have no idea what this is. And then stupid me just went, "Oh, that's a prismatic golem," and I just ruined the encounter, not just for myself, but for everyone. Because I had to metagame not knowing exactly what to do in the situation because I just read the monster manual. And I think a lot of the Wildsea's charm comes from tackling situations that are unexpected. The true, not to get too highfalutin, but the true spirit of exploration and encountering new things. And I think that the bigger the selection of monsters I have, the more likely people are going to just take monsters and use them. And that is a good thing. That makes life easy. But I'd rather than make more and release them as a big chunk, I'd rather have a robust series of tools for letting people easily create their own stuff, or suggestions on, hey, here are some ideas, but there's no mechanics attached, or here are some mechanics with no ideas attached. Just things that people can use as a springboard to make their own things, which will always inherently surprise their players, because it's not something their players could have read about.
So less of a monster manual, but more of a manual how-to monster.
Yeah, that kind of thing I'd be way more in favor of.
Basically just,
That's fair.
a Dr. Frankenstein's how-to guide.
Yeah.
The fact that a lot of encounters, at least like as far as I know, like you have tracks. So like, let's say pinwolves are attacking the ship, and I'm going to roll brace to like stop the pinwolves from getting on the ship. That could still damage the track because the object is to continue the scene, not to kill the monster.
Yes, exactly. It is to survive and profit in some way from whatever's going on. Either get through it alive or get through it with something useful. Doesn't always involve killing stuff. Or in fact, in a lot of games, it's turned out not to involve killing stuff, which has been quite nice.
Yeah,
I think we've very rarely killed things for the most part.
But we've got kind of a nature murder mentality. We may have not had many opportunities, but we've taken the opportunities that have been given.
Well, yeah, I mean, those opportunities don't just come every day.
They kind of do on the sea.
If life gives you lemons, take the lemons.
Wait, no, the last time we talked about lemons, it went bad.
Lemons are bad.
Okay, guys.
Lemons are going to take us.
Right.
Okay.
If life gives you lemons, use a cast net.
Well, also, when I come out with like the Wildsea 2, more wilds, and it has like 400 new monsters in it, feel free to call me a hypocrite and refer back to this, obviously.
No,
But you'll be a rich
it-
hypocrite.
It's fine. We're all gonna. This is all gonna be redacted anyways.
Hey, okay.
No,
There's
like-
just gonna be a bunch of bleep sounds and some, connecting word tissue.
It's gonna be like getting on
Yeah,
the
like-
internet in the 90s.
Like right now, listeners are just listening to like anime OSTs or
Yeah.
something.
Some of the redacteds annoyed so many people.
that's fair.
Oh, okay.
Is that our redacted noise? It's just a cat.
It's just-
Yeah. Oh, that'd be such a good noise.
Okay.
Hey Gomez, do you want to be in a redacted noise?
I don't know. I just see as someone who struggles sometimes getting creative, I like having springboards of rough ideas to take from.
Yeah.
And so I do enjoy monster manuals just to use as rough ideas and then not use any of those monsters, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm fully in favor of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just always it's hard
It's
to balance
tricky.
how much of my input people want in the Wildsea, which I know sounds like a weird thing to say, maybe, but
No,
it's like with the Reaches. There's a reason the Reaches are at the end of the book rather than at the beginning with the setting. It's because they are optional. They're more detailed. They have stuff. Some of them have history, NPCs. Like all this stuff is laid out for you. And for some players, especially from more traditional games, that kind of stuff is great. But for a lot of the early players that we kind of grabbed, especially on the Discord, that is just anathema to them. They hate that kind of stuff because what they want is, here is your sandbox. Here are some pillars. Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's definitely I could, and again, not pigeonholing you into anything, but I could see a Wildsea 2 being just reaches and monsters, or reaches, monsters, and like those kind of extra things where if people want to pick it up they can, and if not, it's just it's fluff, it's flavor, it doesn't need to be there, but it's there if you want something to kind of go off of, or see what other people have done, other people being yourself and whatever creators work on future things. But
I have an idea for Wildsea 2. It's called Never Sky. And it's about the civilizations that are still on the ground level that cannot reach the surface.
So a full exploration of the Underreefs.
yeah.
The thing I said never to even think about.
So it's like all the aspects are
Well,
all
who's
the
going to do it?
aspects.
Us?
coughs and Drock Sheltry.
Yeah, I'll do it. Watch me. I'm going to start a Kickstarter right now.
Well, we'll have an SRD at some point as well, so go for it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, it's we're excited to see whatever you create next, or if you don't create anything, that's fine too. But I mean, you clearly
It won't
you've
be fine
clearly-
for bank balance.
Yeah, no, I know. You've clearly hit on something fun for a lot of people, and it would be exciting if you did more. That's all. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
But,
I can't feel too pressured. The book isn't out yet, so
No, I'm not trying to. No, I'm. As I say, it was the quote unquote mandatory question because it's all those when you talk to creators and stuff, you're always like, "What are you working on next?" And it's like, guys, I'm still working on this.
I was going to say, unfortunately, what are you working on next? The same thing we're talking about.
Yeah, no,
Reminds me of,
the question was meant tongue in cheek. So
No, it's fine.
It reminds me of Rick and Morty when the writers did a song of what's taking season 2 so long, and it's basically, we're drawing it. If we released it now, it would be a script.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, I think we'll let Felix go back to bed.
Yes,
Whatever
we should
he's
go to bed,
going to be
yeah.
doing. So I was Ian the Firefly, and we had
Austin, who plays Tsitsuyaku.
Bev, who usually is Rook, but this time was just Bev.
I'm Dylan. I'm G-Son. I'm your boy.
Gomez, who is our redacted sound.
Squeeze your cat to get that.
No, he's just running around doing that.
Oh.
And,
So good.
and we had our amazing, wonderful, and as I said, possibly the best guest star we could get, although they've stated that they're not the best, so I guess season 2 will be trying to get the best.
Next
Yeah,
time
get
we'll
Rick.
What?
guest.
It's all about Rick.
Who was
Oh, me.
Felix.
Oh, yes, sorry, Felix, yeah. Felix Isaacs, that's me. It's really late now. I mean,
We're holding the door open. You can walk out.
We really appreciate you being here as your brain
Yeah,
slowly
thank
dies.
I kept it up. I kept being awake throughout the entire thing, and then you're doing the outro. My brain's just like, nah, it's time. You're gone.
Thank you for being here. We were sponsored by nobody. Signing off.